Zoo School Live. Today we are going to be celebrating a little bit of an early World Turtle Day. So World Turtle Day is actually going to be happening on Sunday, May 23rd. And this is a worldwide event that was started in 2000 by the American Tortoise Rescue. And their whole goal is to bring awareness and information about turtles and tortoises to different people and hopefully build some empathy and connections and help protect and conserve them. And so they have a theme every year. This year's theme is Turtles Rock. And they picked that because they're actually hoping to get people to take a closer look at turtles and realize that they're not just a rock with legs. They are actually very intelligent. They can learn. They are really well adapted to different habitats and surviving in different places, and they are incredible species. So today, to celebrate, we're going to talk about 3 different tortoise and turtle species we have here at Elmwood Park Zoo that are unfortunately either endangered or vulnerable or at risk in the wild. And we're going to focus on how we can protect them and some fun little things you can do in your everyday life that will help turtles around the world. So to get started, we're going to meet our first tortoise. So we're going to come over here to this kind of sandy habitat area because we're going to meet with my friend Hungry Jack. And Hungry Jack is actually a pancake tortoise. Hopefully you guys get the fun name reference, Hungry Jack the pancake tortoise. Now this particular species is found in Eastern Africa, so they are going to really like hot, dry climates. And if you take a look at his shell, you might notice that it's really flat, hence the name pancake. So this flat shell is actually a really unique adaptation to the pancake tortoise. So they actually can squeeze into really small spaces with that shell. The shell is made of bone, just like with other turtles, and they are born with it. But the big difference for Hungry Jack is that he actually has some small holes in the sides and parts of his shell that allow it to compress or squeeze down. So he can actually get into really, really small spaces. And because of his shell having little holes in it, he's very lightweight, which allows him to speed around. So this is actually probably one of the fastest species of tortoise on the planet. Now, Hungry Jack's demonstrating very nicely his main way of protecting himself. So not only can they run fast, but they can squeeze into small spaces, and this makes it really difficult for a predator to get them. So what they would do is they'll actually kind of breathe in and suck in their shell and slide underneath a rock, slide into a rock crevice, and then they kind of breathe in again, and it expands a little bit, and they're basically wedged in there nice and tight. So it makes it really difficult for another animal to hunt them and eat them. So it's a really great defense mechanism. Now, to also help keep themselves safe, they are what we call crepuscular. So that means they are active most often at dusk and dawn. So they prefer those different twilight hours instead of being out all day during the middle of the day where they're a little more exposed. So they take advantage of kind of as the sun's setting and the sun's coming up. Now, I did mention that they are unfortunately endangered in their habitat. So endangered means there are not very many left. Now, we're super lucky to have our friend Hungry Jack. He came from another zoo. He is around 7 years old, but they can live to be over 35 in a zoo setting. And in the wild, they have a pretty long life too, into their 20s and 30s. Unfortunately, what is causing these tortoises to be at risk or endangered is the fact that they are often sought after in the pet trade. So because he has this really beautiful pattern on his shell, he has a really unique shell that can be flattened, it can expand a little bit, it has those holes. That makes him very desirable. People want to bring a pancake tortoise home. And he is pretty adorable, we would agree, but these tortoises are best left out in the wild. Now, the other issue that is facing them is going to be habitat loss. Their areas where they prefer to live on the savanna, the scrublands of East Africa are often being developed and used for ranching and things like that. So unfortunately, they have to share that space then with humans, and us humans, we're not super great at sharing, unfortunately. So Hungry Jack is a really cool animal to have here at the zoo. He helps us deliver this conservation message, and he's really fun to watch. You can see he's very animated. He can be very fast. Now, we don't want him to go too quickly towards the edge there. We'll take one more look at his little face there. Good morning, Hungry Jack. Thanks for hanging out with us. And we will move on to our next tortoise friend. Thanks, Hungry. All right. So the next tortoise we're going to see is slightly bigger than Hungry Jack. She's going to come out here. In fact, much, much bigger as far as weight and size go. And she's a little bit older too. We're going to say hi to Sandy. And Sandy is our 16-year-old gopher tortoise. So she is a species that is native here to the United States. In fact, this is the only type of tortoise found east of the Mississippi River. Now, she would not be living here in Pennsylvania. Our seasons are a little too extreme for her. She's going to prefer living in Florida, Georgia, along the coast in those southern states. And like the name Sandy implies, she does prefer sandy soils. And they're called gopher tortoises because they burrow underground. So in the wild, Sandy would live in kind of those sandy, dry areas along the coast, and she would dig a burrow for protection and safety. And they can dig a burrow that is close to 10 feet deep and 40 feet long. That's a huge burrow. And what that burrow helps to do is temperature regulate. So like other reptiles, tortoises, and turtles, they are not able to keep their own bodies warm or cool. They have to use the surroundings to do that. So in parts of Florida and their habitat, it can get very, very warm. So she wouldn't want to always be super hot and out in the sun and exposed. So she may spend some time underground to help cool down. Now the really super cool thing about gopher tortoise burrows is that they are what we call a keystone species. So this means that their burrow can actually provide habitat for over 350 other animals. That could be things like invertebrates, different types of bugs and arachnids, things like snakes and frogs, even birds and other small mammals and reptiles. So many different animals actually share their burrows and use it as a safe place. So if you remove a keystone species from the ecosystem, many, many other species suffer, and that's why they get that name. Now, unfortunately, gopher tortoises, like Sandy, are considered vulnerable or threatened in their native habitat. And most of this is due to habitat loss because, again, the places where Sandy likes to live are the places that humans want to live, so we develop those spaces. Now, that doesn't mean that all of her habitat is disappearing. The biggest threat to them is actually something called habitat fragmentation. And that is when a location is split up into smaller pieces. So there could be safe places throughout, but they're divided by roads, different types of human areas like shopping centers, parking lots, things that make it harder for those animals to move from place to place. So habitat fragmentation can be really tricky for a tortoise. So the really cool thing, though, is that the state of Florida and some other places have actually put it together incentive programs. So they've created special programs where if you're a homeowner or a landowner in those areas where tortoises are threatened, if you add some special plants, you protect a certain space in your yard, if you find a nest and you keep it safe, you actually can get special rewards for that. You can get tax breaks and all kinds of things. So it really encourages people to get involved and help protect such a cool species that is only found in a few select places here in the U.S. So we're so happy to have Sandy here because she's a really fun tortoise to take for walks in the zoo, and she really can be pretty charismatic. People love to meet her, and it's always nice to learn about a species that does share our similar habitats and that people are actively trying to help. So we're gonna get a nice close-up of Sandy here. She's checking things out on this nice fake grass. In Sandy's habitat, of course, she would have more of sandy dirt and soil. We do give her a nice place to dig here at the zoo so she can explore. And she's got a pretty nice thick shell. So as I said, she's around 16 years old. They can live to be 40 to 60. So they have a pretty long lifespan, and that's really incredible. Now, she's about full size. She won't get too much bigger than this. Thanks for hanging out with us today, Sandy. So we're going to say goodbye to Miss Sandy and pop up to see our last turtle for the day. Good job, Miss Sandy. So the last species we're going to find today is one that does live here in the state of Pennsylvania. And it's a little different from our friends Hungry Jack and Sandy. Both of those animals were tortoises and preferred living on land. They preferred drier, more sandy and arid places. This animal really likes our forests and really likes the water. So we're going to say hello to Woody, and Woody is a wood turtle. Now, they get the name wood turtle because their shell looks like it's been carved out of wood. Now, she's a little bit dirty today because she was playing in her dirt earlier, but you can see all these really small lines. They look like intricate carvings. And that is actually where her species name came from. Glyptemis insculpta means engraved or carved tortoise. So this particular type of turtle is both found on land and water, but they do spend a ton of time in the water. So we're going to see if Miss Woody would like to swim around a little bit for us today. They have claws on their feet, but they also have pretty large back feet that have a paddle shape. You can kind of see that in the water there. So that allows her to maneuver pretty quickly in different aquatic habitats. Now, they really prefer to live in cool, slow-moving streams and rivers, and they really prefer kind of open space. So you're not going to find this kind of turtle here in the Philadelphia region very often because they do like to have a little bit more privacy, a little bit more habitat to explore. They're often found in more mountain stream areas. And unfortunately, they are considered vulnerable or threatened and even endangered in some parts of their range. Here in Pennsylvania, they are considered threatened, but in other states, they unfortunately are endangered. And the biggest threat to them is a combination of both what we discussed with Sandy and with Hungry Jack, and that is the pet trade and habitat destruction. So obviously, the wild places in our modern world are getting smaller and smaller in some areas. So that habitat fragmentation we talked about with Sandy is a big issue for Woody as well. There aren't a lot of clean mountain streams, and those that are around have been suffering from pollution for many, many years, especially here in our state of Pennsylvania. Things like mining operations actually caused a lot of problems for our groundwater and our streams, and it's taken many years for them to recover. So wood turtles are an animal that's impacted by that water pollution. And then, of course, the pet trade. In fact, in some states, they believe that those population drops are totally related to people taking them out of the wild and bringing them home. And the reason this happens is if you take a look at Woody, she does have beautiful orange all around her legs and her neck. And that really helps to make her really flashy, but it's actually probably used as a distraction for predators in a way to kind of draw attention away from her head so she can kind of scoot away. And they have that beautiful carved wood-shaped, wood-colored shell, so people are really attracted to them. And turtles, I think, really draw a lot of people's attention. They're an interesting animal, so many of us want to bring one home and share our lives with them, but they can be really hard to care for. And when you take a turtle out of the wild, unfortunately, that means that they might not be able to reproduce. And for a wood turtle and many of our other tortoise species, they actually don't reproduce for several years into their life. So in Woody's case, she is 13 years old. She only recently would have become mature enough to have her own eggs. It takes turtles a long time to grow up and have eggs. So if you remove Woody out of the wild, now she's no longer able to lay, and that population kind of freezes. It stops growing. But if we leave them in the wild, we protect them, they're able to kind of take care of themselves, which is really great. So wood turtles, unfortunately, are a declining species here in Pennsylvania. We love that we have Woody because this species is one of my favorites to talk about because they are so interesting and they're so intelligent. One of the things that they will do to find food is they'll actually stomp on the ground. So one of the wood turtle's favorite snacks is worms. So worms actually come to the surface when it rains. I'm sure you guys have seen worms wiggling around on the sidewalks or in the mud when it's raining. And they do that because of the vibrations of the water. It kind of irritates them. So they come up to the surface. So what wood turtles will do is if it's not raining and they're trying to trick those worms, they'll stomp their feet on the ground really quickly and it replicates that sound. And those worms come up, wiggling up because they think it's raining, and there's Woody waiting to have a snack. So they're actually incredibly smart creatures. And they're very agile too. Believe it or not, she's not moving super fast right now, but she could swim really quickly, and they're excellent climbers. They've been known to climb over chain link fences if they need to get from one point to the other. Most of you probably know that turtles and tortoises can be extremely stubborn when they're trying to move around, and wood turtles are no different. So what are the things that you guys can do at home? You know, I know that it's hard sometimes to hear about animals and their habitat loss and the pet trade, and you're thinking, what can I do to help? I'm not taking turtles out of the wild. I'm not developing land. Well, here's 3 really easy things. You can use a reusable water bottle. And one of my favorite parts about using a reusable water bottle is you can customize it with fun stickers. You can see we've got a nice little turtle sticker there, some zoo stickers. So you can make it your own, and it'll last you a long time. So it's better for you and it's better for the environment. You can get metal, you can get hard glass, you can get plastic, whatever you want to do, just use a reusable water bottle and prevent all those plastics from heading into the landfill. On a similar note, you can actually use reusable straws. So this is a metal one. They make silicone ones. They make harder plastic ones that are multiple use. So again, reduces the amount of plastics that end up in a landfill and that can end up in a turtle's mouth or habitat, causing problems. And then the last thing is to use a reusable bag. So they are available everywhere. Every organization has one with their logo on it, including us here at the zoo. You can get ones from grocery stores. You can even make your own out of an old t-shirt. Reuse bags, and again, prevent those plastic bags from ending up in the landfill. So that's just 3 easy things that you can incorporate into your daily life that will actually help protect turtles. So guys, just like every zoo school, if you have any questions, if you're watching this later on and you think of something you'd like to know, feel free to pop those down in the comments and we will pop on to answer them later. And for now, thank you for joining me. Make sure you celebrate World Turtle Day on Sunday, May 23rd with make sure you take a selfie with your favorite turtle picture or turtle stuffed animal or turtle here at the zoo if you come and visit them. And you can tag us in that as well. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday.